as DID, but it's still, both are trauma related, trauma sourced. That is etiology. The source is still trauma. The cults understand this, and that's why they employ trauma, specific kinds of protocols of trauma to split the personality, but then they also have sorcerers who channel in spirits that during the trauma and during the splits to attach to the programming, to enhance the programming, and also to structure the internal DID system in such a way that it is supernatural architecture.
I know. I think that somebody may actually have the question out there, would I be DID? And how would they know? What were some tests that somebody could do to maybe find out if they are or not?
Well, I used to be chairman of the Governor's Task Force on Child Abuse. Usually a person that is abused before the age of 7 develops a dissociative condition. We've mentioned dissociative identity disorder. There's actually 5 different dissociative conditions. The most well-known one is dissociative identity disorder. So if a person was abused as a child, and they know they were abused as a child, and they have severe memory loss. Everybody has some type of memory loss, but if they have severe memory loss, that is often one of the signs or characteristics of dissociative identity disorder. Another symptom is unexplainable headaches and other body pains. For example, I recently treated a woman who went to the doctor and she had a lot of body pain, and after extensive test, it was not discovered what she had. So when she came to me, I discovered that she was abused as a child and she had dissociative identity disorder, and that's what's called body memories. Another characteristic is chronic depression. In fact, most people who go for counseling is misdiagnosed at least 5 different times before they have a correct diagnosis of dissociative identity disorder. Most of them go for counseling for either depression, severe depression, or anxiety attacks, or they have the unexplainable phobias, or they even have flashbacks, just a brief flash memory of something, or their emotions that they're experiencing does not relate to anything going on in their life. It is called affect, A-F-F-E-C-T. What that is the emotions of their personalities that's below the conscious surface, but those emotions come to the surface, so they experience that. They may lose time. They may have what's called a psychogenic fugue episode. For example, a woman calls me and she says, I don't know where I'm at. She's driving her car, and because of the stress of driving, it triggered what's called a psychogenic fugue episode, where she's lost. She doesn't know where she is. It's not just normal being lost while you're driving. She doesn't know how she got there. She doesn't know where she is. So thank God for modern technology, I'm able to find out where she is and how to get her home safely. And many people that have a dissociative disorder have a secondary diagnosis as well, which usually complicates it. Many people are wrongly diagnosed as having bipolar personality disorder, which is the old manic depressive. That is a common misdiagnosis. So if a person was abused as a child and they have major gaps in their memory, then that's some of the main characteristics. There's actually a test that a person can take. It's called the SCID inventory to determine if a person has DID, but it's called the Dissociative Disorder Interview Schedule.
I was going to ask you about the phobia. I thought that was interesting. Is there certain phobias that show up that are ones that you could pick, or are there certain phobias that you can't pick out?
Let me just make a comment, because what Lynn, or not Lynn, but Preston was talking about is very excellent. Just a couple other things just to say about the phobias, and Preston can comment. Anything that is dissociated, and if the protection, the internal defenses begin to break down, these can begin to surface based upon certain life experience triggers, and it'll always be beyond the normal range of emotions. But I think the other one is, and I wanted to bring this up, and Preston, of course, is very familiar with this. When Dr. Richard P. Clough, who was a protege of Cornelia Wilbur, who was the therapist for Sybil, when he was in his training, and of course he was being mentored by Cornelia Wilbur, Dr. Richard Clough began to do research and going through files of those people who had been diagnosed. That he now looks back, and as he began to work with them, he now he recognized they were DID. The majority of them were wrongly diagnosed as schizophrenia. So probably in the past, the most common misdiagnosis is schizophrenia. That's, I believe, in Axis 1. It's biological. It cannot be treated with counseling. It can only be treated by the pharmacology, drugs.
Yes, that's right.
Now, here's what he said, and this is in the literature. If a person is, if someone hasn't seen It's a Beautiful Mind, it's a classic story of a true schizophrenic. But they hear voices outside their head, whereas a multiple, not all necessarily begin hearing voices, but a multiple or a person who's DID, the voices are always inside the head. So that is also another category, and just another follow-up on the medical aspect. As I was reading the literature years ago on the kind of symptoms that people have that have a history of abuse and who are dissociative, many of them have a whole history of medical conditions, even surgeries that never solved the problem. And it's very tragic. And so to give you one example, Preston mentioned body memories, and I know what he means by that, but it's a part of this somatization that's associated with trauma and dissociation. But here's what I do when I'm working with someone and someone says, "Oh, I got a horrible headache." I always ask them, "Where does the headache?" And they'll point to different places in their head. They don't know that these localized headaches are not normal, because we get headaches. It's either in the front, sinus headache, or it's global. It affects the whole head. But these little zingers, these that appear in different places, this is very indicative of those who have dissociative disorder. And also, for example, if someone has a chronic pain, I was just working with this young girl the other day, and her arm, she couldn't hardly move it. She says, "I got to go to the doctor." I says, "Well, come on in. Let's just test this." And I just asked the question. I said, "In Jesus' name, I just want to know if there's anyone in the history that shares this body whoever has had any pain in your arm and you never had a chance to be here." And this little person pops out, and actually went all the way back to an infant when she was being abused. Her arm was very severely abused. When that was resolved and integrated and brought in, there was no more pain in her arm.
Yes. I studied under Dr. Richard Clough personally at Harvard Medical School. And he was actually on the board, on the committee that created the term dissociative identity disorder. So dissociative identity disorder is not demonization. It is not a psychotic condition. It is a psychological condition caused by trauma or abuse as a child. There are many somatic symptoms, body symptoms that I have personally observed, and is actually, many of them are in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders. People, when they switch from one personality to another, their eye color can actually change.
Wow.
I'll never forget a man came in my office with his wife, and this was written up in the state mental health newsletter. A man had been severely depressed, and the police were called. The police actually beat him up when he switched because he didn't remember what the officer said before, and they put him in jail for a month when he actually had a dissociative identity disorder. When his wife brought him in my office, and I asked him, what was your name? And he switched. She started hollering, his eyes are hazel, his eyes are hazel. And I said, well, what are you talking about? And I looked at his eyes and I said, yes, of course they're hazel. So she got his driver's license and his eyes were brown. And then when he switched back to his normal personality, his eyes actually physically changed to brown. That was not demons. That's the power of the mind. So there's many somatic symptoms. They will often have a change in their blood pressure, a change in their eye prescription. Some people with DID, when they switch personalities, they no longer need glasses. But when they switch back to their main personality, they need to put on their glasses again. One case that was well documented by a university, a woman had severe diabetes, but she had 100 personalities, and each of the 100 personalities had a different blood sugar level, and one of them did not have diabetes. So it was how would you like to have been the doctor to try to adjust her medicine?
Wow.
I counseled one woman with DID who had gone to the doctor, and she had every symptom of pregnancy, except she wasn't pregnant. And the doctor says he's never seen anything like it. Every test showed negative. Her belly was protruding, everything. She was lactating, every symptom of pregnancy. So when she came to see me the following week, I talked to her like Doug said that he talked to this woman, and I said, is there someone inside that wants to be pregnant? So the personality said, yes, I want a child real bad. And I talked to the personality, and I asked Jesus, as a wonderful counselor, to talk to her and heal her. And that personality was integrated. And the next week when she went back to the doctor, all the symptoms of pregnancy disappeared. So that's just a few of some of the physical characteristics of people with DID. And this is public information. This is not something that we've made up. This information is readily acceptable, is readily available to people on the internet or in any medical book. So it's really phenomenal, the power of the mind.
Yeah, I would just also follow up with that. I read a report, I think it was in one of the medical journals, that talked about the effects of the trauma, and how I think it was Dr. Basil van der Kolk, where he wrote an article, a scholarly journal, titled "The Body Keeps Score," and it's very